Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here for a super fun February wrap-up March TBR, a baby March TBR. Nothing too crazy. I want to keep some of what I want to read, not a secret, but like not plan it too much. There's some things I have to read this month for various reasons, so I'll probably talk a little bit about those, but I'll leave everything else kind of up in the air. There's a lot of stuff that I've gotten recently. You'll see a book haul soon that's a little exorbitant and crazy, but a lot of those books are books I'm really looking forward to reading, so can't wait to be reading some of those this month. So I read 7 books this month, and I'm currently in the middle of 2, so about 9 books, but not really. I'll show you. You'll see. I'll start with the books that I finished, and then I'll talk about the books I haven't, because those are going to be part of my March TBR, obviously, and I figured that's just the most logical way to do it. So I read Tell Them of Battles, Kings and Elephants by Matthias Enard, and this is a translated piece of fiction. It was translated from French to English, and it is about Michelangelo in 1506. He's invited by the Sultan of Constantinople to design and build a bridge over the Golden Horn. And it was so good. I gave this about 4.5 out of 5 stars. I was really torn about giving it 5 out of 5 stars versus 4.5 out of 5. Still a little torn, but it was definitely such a great read. It was so trippy. There was a lot of it that I honestly felt like I was high or something while I was reading it. It felt like a trip. It was so good. It made me think so much. I've been reading a lot of articles about it, and I think those do it way more justice than I do, because there's so much going on there in terms of history and metaphors and messages, and it was just so good. Cannot recommend it enough. It feels weird when you first start it because you don't really know what's going on, and it's also like, why are you writing about this very specific piece of history? But as you keep going, it just is so good, and it's so short. It's so well written, so transportive. The atmosphere is just so fun and not commonly found in books, and it was amazing. I felt like I was there with Michelangelo. The letters in between chapters are real letters Michelangelo wrote and received during that time that were translated by the author. So 10 out of 10. Go pick this up. It's super short, and you'll learn a lot, and it'll really make you think. Next, I finished What the Wind Knows by Amy Harmon, and I talked about it last month a little bit because I had started it in January with my friend. I was buddy reading this with one of my college friends, Nikki, and we both kind of established it was about a 3 out of 5 star read for us. I know a lot of people truly loved this book and said it was incredible, and it's like an Irish Outlander, which I would agree it's kind of like an Irish Outlander, but I would say it's like a shorter, less extensive version of Outlander. It was super interesting. The premise is we have our main character, Anne Gallagher, and her grandfather is from Ireland, and he's always talked about it, but he's never wanted to take her there. So finally, when he dies and she's truly heartbroken and grieving him, he asks that she take his ashes and spread it over the loch in Ireland where he's from. And she goes there and she gets on the little boat, sprays the ashes, and then all of a sudden finds herself in Ireland of 1921. And her grandfather is a little boy, and she meets this man named Thomas who is taking care of her grandfather at the time because his parents have died, and they fall in love, and it's about Ireland teetering on the brink of like war and revolution and against the British and against each other, and it's really interesting. But I did feel like there wasn't a lot of plot there. For the most part, it was like just them falling in love, but not a lot happened. And then like there would be diary passages of history, and it was way too extensive to be a diary passage. So it was really hard for me to believe that this man was just writing dialogue in his diary entries. So that kind of took me out of the story a bit. I also felt like the characters were flat. They didn't have a lot of character traits. I didn't dislike them by any means. I just think they could have been fleshed out more. I feel like the author picked like 1 or 2 things that would define their characters, and that was it. that's all we got. It's just like she likes writing and she's quiet, and that was about it. And I was like, well, there's more to people. There's more depth, and I just didn't feel like I got that. But I did root for them in the end, and I liked the ending, so it was a solid 3 out of 5 for me. Next, I read A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It was about the same as the first book for me, although I think I liked the first book just like a smidgen more because there was more tension and more discovery and more intrigue and lots to be revealed. And I feel like in the second one, we were just kind of moving from room to room. I think Reagan from Peruse Project said a similar thing when she read it. It was just, there wasn't a lot of action until the very end, but once we got to the very end, oh my gosh, that last 150 pages was so good. That final reveal made me so excited for The Crown of Gilded Bones, which is the third book coming out in April, I think. I already have a box set pre-ordered of the first 3 books, so I'm so excited to read the third book. It was so weird and good and steamy. Don't forget, these books are steamy. If you don't want steamy, don't read them. If you don't know what the first book is about, I did talk about it in my January wrap-up because that's when I read it. But we have our main character, Poppy, who is the maiden of the society. She has a steamy encounter with a guard named Hawk, and this is all first book because I can't tell you second book or you'll be spoiled. Yeah, she has a steamy encounter with a guard named Hawk, and then he becomes her guard, and it's steamy romance, intrigue, fantasy. You're learning about the society. She's been lied to about the society for a very long time, so it's her uncovering things. There's kind of like a werewolf vampire-ish plot, but it's definitely different than anything I've ever read in terms of that, so I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend picking it up if you like steamy fantasy. It's a super quick read, even though it's a lot of pages, and I had a great time. Next, I read She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, and I wrote an extensive review of this on Goodreads, and I will link that down below because definitely go check that out. Better articulated than I will be here. But I would like to actually make a video review about this, but I want to make it closer to the release date because it hasn't come out yet. It's going to be released July 20th, 2021, and I highly recommend pre-ordering this book. Like 10 out of 10, please pre-order it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was incredible. So the description is that it's like Song of Achilles meets Mulan, but I think that's way oversimplifying how good this book is and how intricate it is and how much of its own story it is. It's so good. So this is about the Red Turban Rebellion in which the Yuan dynasty is overthrown for the Ming dynasty, and it's wild. You get multiple perspectives from a lot of different characters. A fortune teller tells our main character Zhu that she will amount to nothingness and that her brother Zhu Chongba will achieve greatness. And when he dies, she takes over his identity and goes to become a monk because there's a famine and it's like the only way that she'll really be able to survive and get food, and is trying to kind of trick the gods and the universe to bestow upon her this fate of greatness. And it is so good. I just cannot stress that enough. The metaphors in this book, like I still think about all the messages. There's a lot of questioning of what does gender identity mean? What is the spectrum of gender and also the spectrum of sexuality? There's a lot of questions about desire and fate and being able to overcome one's fate. Can desire get you to a point where you can overcome what fate and destiny want for you? And to what point do you want something so much that you're willing to sacrifice maybe your morals or your general ideals to achieve that other fate? Just read my review because I think it summarizes it a lot better, but I would like to delve deeper into the history behind the book and make a video about it soon, or at least before the book comes out, so let me know if you'd be interested. But pre-order this book, you will not regret it. Next, I read A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This was my most anticipated release of the year. I was so excited for this. If you don't know, it's about Nesta, Farah's sister from the first 3 books, and Cassian, who is essentially Rhys's brother. And it was so good. It was everything I wanted. I really felt like I got to know Nesta in a way that would have been impossible if we were still looking from Feyre's perspective. I think it was so well done. The mental health journey that she goes on, I think will resonate with so many people. That's my favorite part of this book, honestly. As much as I love the characters and I love the romance and it's very steamy, I think that the main thing that I loved about this book and took away from this book is her learning what her mental health issues are and the coping mechanisms she needs to deal with them and to treat other people better, because she takes out a lot of her mental health struggles on her friends and family, which a lot of people do. And while that is, you know, a reason behind it, it's not an excuse to treat other people badly. And I think that throughout this book, she learns how to channel that energy and all of that struggle that she's going through, and learns how to cope with it and deal with it better and treat people better and treat herself better. And I found that really powerful and really beautiful, and I truly loved this book, and I highly recommend checking it out. I can't say much more about it because if you haven't read the first 3 books, then you would be spoiled. Technically, these are standalones, but I recommend reading the first 3 books before you read this one, because you're just going to be confused as to like what's going on there. Next, I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This was my first Talia Hibbert book, and I had a phenomenal time. This book is so freaking cute. It's also steamy. I read a lot of steamy romance this month, so I guess because it was February, but normally, I guess I've gotten into it. Like, 2020 was when I was introduced to steamy romance, and now I'm just a huge fan. But I thought that this was so cute. It was so cute. I read so many cute books this month. It was adorable. We have our main character, Chloe, who is one of 3 sisters. There's a second book called Take a Hint, Danny Brown, which I have and I'm going to read. And then the third book, which is going to be about Eve Brown, is coming out in a couple days, I think. So definitely go check those out. I haven't read them, but I'm sure they're good based on this book. I had such a good time. So like I said, we have Chloe Brown. She struggles with fibromyalgia and a lot of chronic pain, and she has dealt with a lot of, you know, people in her life being crappy to her because of it and leaving her, and she doesn't really like trust people easily. She's a little grumpy, but like with a soft cinnamon roll heart inside. And we have Redford, who goes by Red, and he is like the superintendent of her apartment complex, and they meet and they kind of hate each other right off the bat, but then they get in a situation where she wants him to help her with a list that she created after she has a near-death experience, because she wants to make the most out of life, and they fall in love. And I love the way the conflicts were handled in this book. I thought they were really well done. It wasn't like unnecessary conflict, or at least even if I felt like in the moment the conflict was unnecessary, the way it was resolved was very satisfying to me and wasn't drawn out too long, and it was really good. So I definitely recommend this. I'm not usually a fan of contemporary romance, so this is definitely one of my new favorites. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So cute. The last book I finished in February was The Lesson by Cadwell Turnbull, and I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was so good. This was another one of those books that I read, and I was like, I need to think about this for a long time. I want to look through the discussion questions at the end. I read this for the Black-A-Thon. This was like the group science fiction and fantasy book. I don't read a lot of alien books, but the reason I really loved this one, so if you don't know what it's about, so this alien race called the Ena come to the US Virgin Islands on Water Island, and they say that they're there for peaceful purposes and that they'll exchange technology for the humans letting them be there for a few years. But they meet any act of defiance or, you know, any sort of disrespect or disobedience with like a crazy amount of aggression, like bad aggression. They will do bad things to you. So you gotta be real careful around them. And obviously there's a lot of tensions between the humans and the aliens. And we have a lot of different perspectives that we're following. And I think this was so well done, because the reason I tend to not like alien stories, which I don't know, give or take, like sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't, is because it's often like, oh, one girl must save the day. And I love a good one girl must save the day story. However, with an alien situation, especially when it's trying to be futuristic, often I find the writing or the story to be a bit unrealistic. And so I end up not enjoying it, because the whole time I'm sitting there really cynical and questioning. But what I loved about this is that that's not the point of this book. The point of this book is not like Sally Mae from Kentucky goes to save the day. it's about what would that actually be like? Like, how would our society be affected, or how would a society be affected, right? How would people react? How would tensions occur? How would that affect pop culture and media? You know, how would people go about living their daily lives, and what would life be like? And it's just so interesting. Like, people still are having their normal struggles. It just happens to be compounded by the alien race being there and causing issues. So I loved that. I thought it was so interesting. There's probably so many metaphors I'm missing and so many messages and themes. A main theme that I think is really important, really prevalent, and I want to look more into is about the history of colonialism in the Caribbean. This alien invasion is, in a way, representative of that, and also we get flashbacks to colonialism and, you know, slavery within the Caribbean, and I just think that that was really interesting element and a very prevalent element. So I think that a lot of people should pick up this book, read this book, learn more about it, look up the history behind this book. That's what I'm doing. It was really good, definitely different than what I normally read, and I had a great time with it. I'm also now 30% of the way through Becoming by Michelle Obama, still loving it. Didn't have a lot of time to listen to the audiobook this month, but I'm hoping to finish it in March. I got 781 pages into Dragonfly and Amber by Diana Gabaldon, and so I'm almost done. It's 960 pages, so I read 30 more pages this morning. I'm on page 812. I will get there. I will finish this book. I am determined. It will happen. But I am really enjoying it. The last 150 pages that I've read have not really gripped me as much as I would expect, considering I'm so close to the end of this book. Normally with big books like this, you get to the end and you're like really invested and like things are picking up, and for some reason I just don't feel that way about this book, and I think that I kind of like the first book a little more than this one, but this is still really well done. I mean, the amount of research it must have taken to write this series is insane. It's so impressive, and I am very excited to finish it and keep going with the series. I'm also watching the TV show, so I read a book, then I watch the first season with my housemate, then I'm reading the second book, and we're currently in the second season, but I am close enough to the end that I don't think I'll be spoiled before I finish, so having a really good time with this. I'll probably finish this in the next couple days. In terms of my March TBR, I want to read Blood Ex Libris by, I think, Raven Belasco, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll put up the cover on the screen so you can see the author, but that is for my Romanian series because I would like to move past this book and read a new one, but I just did not have time last month. Too many new releases, too many plans, so next month I'm doing it. Next, I want to read Pride by Ibi Zoboi, and that is like a Pride and Prejudice remix, and I was supposed to read it last month for the Down Memory Jane read-along, but I didn't have a chance to, but I still really want to read it, so I want to read it in March. Don't really know much about that other than that it's a Pride and Prejudice remix, and I'm super excited about it. I also, for the same read-along, this month we're reading Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I think this is one of Jane Austen's books that I haven't read, the other one being Mansfield Park, so I'm excited to finally read all of them, put them all together. I've read 4 out of the 6, and this is the year I'm gonna finish all of them, so I am very excited to finally read this one, and I love this edition. It's stunning. Look at that. I also want to read Lost in the Neverwoods by Aidan Thomas. I have an arc of it, and I have been anticipating it for a bit, so I'm going to read it before the release date. That is a Peter Pan-esque retelling or remix or something like that. I'm really excited about it, and I talked about it in my books I pre-ordered this year, and I think I went into a little more detail about it, so go check that out if you want to hear more. And lastly, I would like to read this book, but I'm not sure if I'll get to it. This is my one, like, random book. That's The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I really want to start reading some Robin Hobb books. I got quite a few of them recently, so I think that this would be a really, really fun one to pick up this month. It's a little shorter than her other books, so I think it would be a good starting place. It's also where they say you should start within her world and all her series, so definitely want to pick this up this month if I have time. So those are all the books that I have to talk about today. Let me know what you read in February. Did you read any of the books I read? Did you read other books? Is there anything you think I should read sooner rather than later? I'd love to know. I just want to hear all the things. Hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Always am grateful for all the likes. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, because again, makes me happy and it satisfies my heart. I have all my social media links down below, like my Goodreads, my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook page, and all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!